Right. So we talked about the Mauryan Empire and the Kushan Empire and how it was formed, and now we're gonna and the art that took place in there. But now we're gonna kind of zoom out a little bit and look at the Kushan Empire in world history, because it is in this period, these early centuries of the Common Era, where the Kushans ruling over North India and into areas of Bactria were very much connected to these other empires that spanned pretty much all of Eurasia, and this is really the beginning of the Silk Road, right? A series of connectivities of transmission of people, products, and ideas that have gone on from the first century CE up until the contemporary world, still going on today. So the Kushans here, we've talked about these other empires we'll get to a little bit later, but the Romans, as you can see, they all kind of overlap together. The Roman Empire controls what is now the Mediterranean and Egypt, the Parthians over here in Iran, and then the Han world, Han China, we'll get into sort of one of the first major dynasties of China, all corresponding in the same period. So this interconnectivity, this is what's sort of thriving or causing this thriving, prosperous period. And in this sort of first phase, the first connections, inter-regional connections, take place during the Kushan period. Here's again just some kind of some dates and regions of these empires that coexisted at this time. And you can kind of see that this map here, this is actually the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, which is a first century Greek text for sailors and merchants that we have today. And it talks about the maritime connections in the Indian Ocean for Greek sailors and obviously the later on Roman sailors that were conducting trade between the Mediterranean and India. And this text, right, talks about the ports and the routes, like, what are the different ports you go to, when should you travel, and then when you go there, what are you going to get, what trade items are you going to find, and also interesting sociologically, what kind of people are there. So we really get, and this text really shows us the maritime connections that people were moving throughout the Indian Ocean, the Arabian Gulf, and with boats you can move a lot more stuff a lot quickly, more quickly than overland routes, which also existed. And we'll get to overland Silk Road a little bit later, but that was also flourishing and functioning as well. But this sort of period of Kushan connectivity shows us the the interlinks of this world, of the Silk Road, these networks that will result in what I like to call the transmission of people, products, and ideas. And for the rest of, as we get to the Silk Road, we're going to see all of the different people, products, and ideas that moved. Some of the products here going to South Asia was gold, silver, and horses were coming in. This is a nice sort of map of the Silk Road. A lot of this goods were transported by camels. There's a special type of camel called the Bactrian camel, which can go over the deserty areas. Horses was a big movement of trade. These nomadic groups moving a lot of products between different regions. Into the Mediterranean with spices from India, aromatics, scents, jewels, Chinese silk. It's called the Silk Road. We'll get into that a little bit more when we get into China. And then things coming into China, coral, spices as well, gold to China. So this is the goods there, but also what's interesting is the people that move. They brought with them their own ideas, philosophies, religions, as we'll see throughout the rest of the world. But it is in this sort of early period of history where these world connections emerge. And then the last sort of empire, the third empire of this imperial age of India, after the Kushans kind of declined, this new group called the Gupta Empire. As you can see, they don't quite have the extent of the Kushans, mainly in northern India. Here, their capital over here is, I think, also Pataliputra, so same as the Mauryans. Founded by this guy Chandragupta, and he was from Magadha, this area here. And he marries this Kumara Devi, whose family, the Lichavis, control this land in the north. And this sort of this marriage unites these two families, and then are able to expand. Samudragupta, their son, kind of rules, kind of expands out, kind of rules over the height of the Gupta Empire, institutes an imperial currency, very much borrowed from the Kushans, supports a lot of arts and literature, and we also have a lot of epigraphic evidence of his achievements. So it continues this sort of the Mardian ideas of inscriptions, and talking about the sort of how he expanded out and controlled the world, or controlled, not the world, India. But what really is important about the Gupta Empire is that this is really seen as the beginning of sort of the golden age, sometimes of a classical age of India, because you have this explosion under the Guptas of literature. This is the period where Sanskrit transitions from sort of the religious language or the Vedas to a literary language. And this will become very important, particularly when we talk about epics, because those epics are also more popular stories that are also recited in Sanskrit that people can enjoy and learn about gods and heroes and all of that stuff. But this and during this period, you get this explosion of literature. One of the most famous poets here is this guy named Kalidasa, Sanskrit poet, and he wrote these sort of long sort of mahakavyas, these epic poems. Meghaduta is a famous poem about this cloud, sometimes called the cloud messenger, where the cloud delivers a message from between two lovers during the rainy season. It's very poetic, explaining about love and longing. Kumarasambhava is, we'll get into that when we get into Shiva. This is basically a big epic poem about Shiva and Parvati and how they meet, come together. So we get religious stories, and Shakuntala is this very interesting play. A lot of it's not just poetry, but also plays that people would perform. Shakuntala is actually from the Mahabharata, the epic there. And the play goes that Shakuntala is visited by this prince. They have a tryst. She gets pregnant, and the prince gives her this ring. Says, if you show this ring, then come to my palace and you'll live with me. But then she loses this ring, and so he doesn't recognize her. So it's this whole poem about kind of love and longing and loss, but very explains a lot of the world, the Gupta world at its time. So you have this explosion of literature. You also have the first sort of beginnings of Hindu temple architecture. We'll get into this later on in the semester, but these early Gupta temples. So we see Hinduism starting to come to the forefront as well. And then also this flourishing art. This is a picture of, this is another story of, at one time the world was getting flooded, another flood story. And Vishnu, who we'll meet very quickly in the epics, comes down in the form of a boar and lifts up the goddess of the world out of the muck and saves the world for all humanity. So you have this flourishing art during the Gupta period as well. And a lot of people even said that this is where chess gets invented during this period as part of this world. So the first beginnings of games from the Gupta period. So just kind of in summary, these three empires, you have the Mauryaans that first unified most of India. Ashoka and his inscriptions introduced the writing system. The Kushans in this inner world, the Silk Road connectivity, flourishing economy and trade and connections. And then you have the Gupta out of that. They're a little bit smaller in their imperial scope, but you see this beginning of Sanskrit literature, literary tradition, and Sanskrit as becoming part of the elite language, and plays and poems and all of that. So that's kind of the imperial background of South Asia.